Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining our walkthrough on a potential demand planning solution within Anaplan. My name is Kyle Rish. I'm an associate partner here at Spalding Ridge, and I spent my entire career within supply chain. So for me, this is really exciting to be able to share this potential demand planning solution within Anaplan. So let's go ahead and jump in. So our first stop in the walkthrough is what we call a homepage within Anaplan. And I think this potential solution here does a really good job kind of identifying three key metrics within demand planning. So if you notice the first visual to the left, where I can, quickly be able to see, what does my historicals look like? How does my forecast look going forward? And then what is that trend line associated with those forecasts? Am I trending in the right direction? Are we trending in the wrong direction? Just being able to understand that at a very high level is going to be really important. Next, the middle visual you notice here, I really, really like this one a lot. It's kind of highlighting the ability within Anaplan around this collaborative connected planning. So what we've highlighted here is the final consensus demand plan, and how does that compare to some of the other teams' forecasts out there? So our sales team, marketing, customer, maybe even the finance team, just to make sure that we're kind of all aligned there. And then on the far right here, you'll notice what are called alerts. And so these are really helping our customers to be able to manage by exception, as opposed to always having to drill down to a SKU level or a location level. We want to make sure that we're highlighting those pieces that are going to require those attention. So if you notice here, kind of the different groupings within our demand planning process, we have Command Center, PlanIQ overview, demand forecasting, functional forecasting, demand shaping, and scenario planning. So the first place I'm going to start is within this command center. And this goes back to that idea of managing by exception. And so what you can see here is kind of three different categories. We can look at, high growth alerts versus low growth alerts. We can see, what are those products that are trending either one way or the other that are going to require our attention. And then our forecast alerts. I really like this one a lot here because this is going to show us which SKUs need our attention. So if we click into this forecast alert here, you'll notice I'm highlighting where we have had some of our larger forecast misses. So again, it's that idea you don't have to drill all the way down to a SKU level to find these. The system's going to do that for you. So if we jump back in here to our command center, and then on the right piece is just a high level consensus shaping exercise. So you can look at, in terms of our annual operating plan, where we at from an attainment percentage, and then are there any gaps to call out? So, this example is showing kind of that forecast gap to sales, just to see where we come in at a high level there and see how we're comparing. The next piece I want to jump back into is around the PlanIQ. And so this is Anaplan's kind of newest capability when it comes to demand planning. It's really their jump into the AI and machine learning world. What PlanIQ allows the solution to do is to take our customers' historical data and then push that into the Amazon AWS service and run that through its machine learning and AI capabilities. We then can integrate back into Anaplan and to pull that in as kind of our baseline forecast. So Anaplan's always been known as a pretty good statistical forecasting tool, but really adding this PlanIQ piece to kind of its repertoire here is going to be a huge jump for the team here. And what this allows us to do is really that first step in our demand planning process and building out a baseline. So you can see it has all these different forecasts algorithms here, whether it's machine learning or kind of your traditional statistical methods. But what that allows us to do is select what's called a best fit for that forecast. So you'll notice all the different percentages here. Typically, we measure MAPE as kind of the best fit selector, but you are able to go into RMSE, MAD, and bias as well. So next, we'll jump back into our homepage, and I want to go into our functional forecasting. And so now that we've set our statistical or AI machine learning baseline, we can start to create that collaborative process with our team. So the different functional pieces, when you think of marketing or sales, finance, customer forecast, we have the ability to start that process off. So you can see, we've added, some of, what are some potential things that could come down the line that could affect the forecast, where our team's able to log risks or, potential opportunities. Do we want to include that in the plan? And you can see for this specific risk here, it's being highlighted here in this line item of sales risk adjustments. So I'll get into a second of how that's going to flow into our consensus demand plan. So jump back into our homepage. Now we can go into what we call a demand shaping exercise. So, this is kind of two different approaches. You can think of this as a, kind of a product lifecycle forecasting, where we have, I think there's a lot of great capabilities from an end of life standpoint, where we can highlight some of those items that potentially need to be end of life. We also can do an exercise around new product introduction. So if you'll notice here, we've kind of set up a couple potential SKUs from a new product standpoint. And what I really like about this solution here is the ability to apply a similar product to that. So a lot of times when you're launching a new product, your company will say, "Well, just model it off after last time we launched a similar product." That's a pretty strenuous exercise to go back and look at all of those different aspects of when you launch those products. So what Anaplan does is made that easy for you, where you can actually select a similar product. You can also say, is it a successor? Do we anticipate any cannibalization that's going to be going off with that product? And then also assigning a seasonality profile. So what that allows us to do is you can see kind of all the financials of a new product. And then once we load a suggested annual volume, we can use that seasonality profile to help us model out what that launch is going to look like. So you can see we've taken that at a very high level, and now we can push it down to, what does it look like from a volume forecast, my revenue, all the financials that go along with launching a new product. So I think this solution does a really good job in terms of our new product forecasting. And then finally, the last thing that I want to go through is the consensus demand review. So if you remember before, kind of this high level, this idea of we want to create a more collaborative demand planning process. So we have highlighted it at this very high level. We talked about the different functional forecasts that go into our consensus demand plan. So let's jump in and see what this kind of end solution would look like here. So if we jump in, you can see, again, we're taking that very same visual at a high level, and we can see this comparison. So what we've done is based on that baseline forecast that we discussed before, so that PlanIQ setting, we can bring in what was our kind of statistical or AI baseline forecast. And then we can start to collaborate with some of our other team members that are submitting forecasts. So we walk through an example of the sales team inputting a risk or an opportunity, but same can be done from a marketing standpoint and customer as well. So this allows us to catch, maybe some of that other market intelligence that our demand planning team isn't catching. You can see it's now converted, it included all of those different risks and opportunities. And then that gives us our final consensus demand plan. Very easily, we can convert that into a revenue forecast. And then that allows us to then compare it with our finance team. So, what do we look like in terms of our annual operating plan? Are there any major gaps that we want to make sure that we're calling out there? So again, I want to thank you all for taking the time to walk through this model. I would love the opportunity to dive into this a little bit more. So if you have any other questions or concerns, feel free to reach out. Thanks, everyone.